So you're finally at the breaking point of saying, we need to hire somebody for all this fundraising stuff. Your organization is growing, you need to bring in those funds. You also know that you're fully capable of doing that. So you just need more support. The question now is, what does that look like? And what does a fully functioning development office, what are those roles and responsibilities? My name is Tiffany Harris. I'm the owner and principal consultant with Carmel and Associates. We are an organization that helps nonprofits and independent schools raise more money and feel confident in doing so. So let's talk about positioning your development office for success. So before we dive into the individual roles of a development office, let's talk a little bit about what a development office does on the whole and what it looks like in the full scope of it. All right. So development office brings in money, right? Development is just a nice way of saying fundraising in the nonprofit world. So you have individual giving, all right? Individual giving is gifts from you and me, money from you and me. It's someone writing a check. It's someone giving crypto. It's someone clicking online on your website and donating money. Okay, individual giving. We think of individual giving on an annual basis. So a lot of times people will say donating to the annual fund or starting a annual giving campaign. That's in individual giving. All right. Now there are other components within individual giving. Individual giving is the standard giving. It's also what we call major gifts. Now major gifts is different for every single organization across the board. Everybody's a little bit different. It depends on your budget. It depends on the type of organization that you have. It depends on the kind of gifts that you're already getting in, and it will change over time. So some organizations, that gift of $1,000 is a major gift, right? Other organizations, it may be $5,000, $10,000. It just depends on who you are. It may be $100. It just depends, okay? So individual giving, major gifts is a component of that. All right, annual giving, major gifts. That's part of individual giving. So that's part one. The second part is institutional giving. Now, institutional giving is just what I said. It's giving from institutions, not from individuals like you and me out there. It's from corporations. That's one part of it. It's from foundations and community foundations. That's the other part of it. And the other part is from government. All right. Now, government, you don't see government grants coming out quite as often, and that's because government tends to change. Every 4 years, new initiatives take place and things change quite a bit. So government grants are a little bit different, but that's what institutional giving is. All right. Those are those grants everybody talks about and says there's money out there. There is. All right. There's something really important that you should know, and I'll do a whole nother video on this though, is that between institutional giving, which again is those grants, whether that's corporate sponsorships like the Coca-Colas of the world or Comcast, or even your local hardware store down the street, Lulu's Hardware, that's giving out a grant to the local charities, those are corporate grants, okay? Or corporate sponsorships in many cases where they want something in return, they want to see their name in lights or something like that. Corporate and foundations give, they certainly do, but did you know that those gifts really only account for about 5%, sometimes 6% of total giving? That's about it. So where the real money is actually in individual giving. It's you and me. It's the regular schmegular, but also the billionaires of the world too. We'll be real about that. It's people giving to organizations. That's where the real money is. About 80% of gifts come through individual giving. So that's really where you want to spend a good amount of time developing your program is with individual giving. So that's a whole side note. We can keep talking about that later, but let's keep going. So you've got your individual giving programs, right? And then you've got your institutional giving, okay? Corporations, foundations, things like that. Now the other part of it is events. Most development offices, most fundraising operations have events. Those could be small cocktail parties. Those could be large galas. That could be street fairs, all different kinds of things for different reasons. Things like fundraisers that you want to bring somebody in, bring folks in to just learn about your organization. You're friend raising at that point, okay? Cultivation events, those are those things. Also, obviously, the big actual fundraisers, the reason why you have that big gala that you invite people to. Maybe you have high ticket prices and you do an auction, all kinds of things like that. So events are a large component of the office as well. And finally, the last part of it, it's not so flashy, it's not sexy at all, but it's truly just operations. Things like acknowledging your gifts. So as a nonprofit organization, a 501c3, you are charged with giving people a tax receipt. So every time someone gives you a gift, whether it's online, whether it's a gift of stock, no matter what it is, they need a receipt saying that they gave to your organization, okay? It should also have your ID on it, your numbers, all that stuff with a little tagline in there. I am not a tax professional, so please do not quote me on all this stuff, but it should have something about this gift was received and no donations were made in exchange for the gift, all that kind of language, okay? So that's important stuff. It has to happen. Now, many organizations have gone to online operations, right? So someone makes a gift online and they immediately received an email that has all that language in there and it says, you've made a gift for $100, thank you so much, okay? That's called an acknowledgement letter. But these are simple operational pieces that have to happen whenever you receive a gift, okay? So that's one part of it. The other part about operations is your database, right? Your database is critical. Again, when you get that gift in from someone, somebody needs to be recording it in the system. Somebody needs to be recording it to say the first name and the last name, what the address is of that individual. You need to know things like emails and phone numbers, as much data as you can possibly collect, and it needs to be accurate. Now imagine if you're getting in hundreds of gifts, right? That's a lot of information. It's a lot of details, and that's fantastic. Great news, you're getting hundreds of gifts, but you need to be recording it accurately, because if you don't, I'm Tiffany Harris, right? If I get a letter in the mail from you that says, Tiffany Violet, can't say I'm going to donate again or that I want to donate at all. You couldn't even get my name right, you know? So these kind of details are incredibly important to the functioning of your office. So it's not just about the events. It's not just about writing grants. It's not just about approaching people and doing campaigns and getting those gifts in. It's about the operational piece of it as well, just as critical as all the rest of it, okay? So again, you've got individual giving. All right. And whether or not you have a major gifts program or even major gifts is just within your strategy, your overall strategy of just of annual giving, that's part of it. You have your institutional giving. Again, each organization is a little bit different of how they decide to go about institutional giving or even whether or not they do it. And then you have events and then you have the operational pieces. So those are all the different parts of development office. So the question now is like, well, okay, so you've got all these different parts and pieces, and who does all these things? How does it all fit together? And now that I'm looking to hire somebody, how do I have a truly fully operating office? What does that look like? All right, so let's take a few scenarios. You may be, let's say you're the CEO of the organization or the executive director, right? And at the moment, for the last few years, you've been doing some grants and some grant writing. And those grants have been coming in fairly regularly now. You always have a couple good grants that come in. You know the people, they know you know the schedules. It's kind of a rote thing for you. You've got that covered, right? You may say, hey, we've got the grant side. We're not planning on growing our grants necessarily right now. One scenario, you may not want to grow your grants. So you're just like, it's good, we're settled, we're fine, but we really need to get these donations coming in, these individual gifts. We want to grow our donor base. Now, here's some strategies and some reasons why you may want to choose this path or you want to choose this option. When you grow your donor base, we talked about grants, right? Grants can be from foundations, they can be from anybody, but those foundations may change where they are and what they're doing, okay? And who they're giving to at a certain given time. At the moment, it may be the environment. They know this is really important and there's a lot of buzz about the environment. So right now, this is where they're giving those funds. 5 years from now, however, perhaps it's more social causes. Maybe it's Black Lives Matter all of a sudden or any other cause out there, right? And those things do change, and organizations, foundations do change what they support. Now, you're not going to go around saying like, well, I've got this $100,000 grant that I've been getting every year and now they're telling me that their parameters are changing. It's unrealistic to say, I'm going to change my mission to get the grant. You're not going to do that, right? You're going to find additional funds. Now, what's unique and special and wonderful about individual giving is that once you have those donors and you've done a fantastic job cultivating them and stewarding them as they're giving, they're going to stick with you. You're not going to have to worry so much about those donors saying, oh, you know what, my big priorities have changed now. I'm no longer doing that. Probably highly unlikely. Could it happen? Sure. Will the great majority of your folks do that? Most likely no. All right. So once you get your individual gift program going and you get people giving on an annual basis, they're yours. They're yours to lose essentially. So get your folks, get your program going. It takes work. It will, which is why you want to hire somebody for that. Why you want to have somebody dedicated to this line of work within your operations, within your fundraising department, okay? Within development. It's important. It's important enough to have somebody dedicated to it, all right? So let's go back to our scenario with the CEO. Your CEO, and let's say you have your grants and you've been doing some individual giving as well here and there with, some program and stuff. And again, you're like, okay, I got to give this up. I've got a lot of other stuff on my plate. It's time for someone else to do it. And I know they probably could do it better, or they could raise more money than I can with everything else that I have going on. Okay, so I'm going to keep the grants because I know that I can just keep that machine running. I've got those grants going. I'm going to hire somebody, a director of development, a director of individual giving, a director of the annual fund. There's lots of different terms for these things, right? And how you structure it. But I'm going to hire somebody to do that work, all right? And in that work, that may be figuring out what the campaigns are and what the strategies are for those giving campaigns, but focusing on individual giving. It may be also add some events in there, an event or two. Nothing big though when you're having somebody doing your individual giving campaign, because again, that's what you want them to be focusing on, all right? You may also consider, and now budgets, everybody has different ones, you may consider hiring another part-time person to go along with that person, all right? If you have somebody doing individual giving, focusing on that work, if you have a part-time person now doing all the gift processing, those acknowledgement letters that we're talking about, managing the database, getting everything together, making sure it's all good, solid information in there, now that frees up that higher level person to do the work you really need them to do and truly develop your program. You will see the results from that kind of setup, okay? So if you can take some of the grants on yourself or just keep that machine going, you don't have to do as many of them, all that, that's one way of thinking about it. Now, if you want to increase your grants, let's say, right? Great opportunity. Let's say you have your fundraising program, you have your development plan together. Great opportunity. If you want to increase your grants, this is where you can hire somebody else. And what I mean by hire somebody else, I mean outsource that, okay? Here's what. Someone who writes grants, you don't need them dedicated to your organization. Sounds crazy. Why wouldn't I hire somebody? You don't need them dedicated just to you. You need someone who's capable of sitting there, compiling all the necessary data, all the information, all the pamphlets and the materials, and writing a good grant. That's what you need. They don't need to necessarily develop relationships with people, okay? Relationship development is that individual giving work. That's where someone says, I like you. I hear what you're saying. You're always contacting me. We're always in touch. I want to give you that initially $500 gift that now becomes a $1,500 gift that a few years later will become a $5,000 gift, okay? So grants, you can easily hire out. Get a contractor for that kind of a thing. Hire a consultant for your grant work. It will be well worth your money if you have to split your funds somewhere, okay? Hire somebody for your grant work and hire internally for your individual giving, okay? And your giving campaigns. That's really where you want somebody to be, where you really, truly want to be spending some good money, okay? My other comment on that is something to be aware of as far as splitting responsibilities and putting too much on one person. We're seeing a lot of this. There are one-person offices, and if that's what you got, that's what you got, right? You got to do it. However, if the sooner you can get out of that kind of framework of just one person doing everything, the sooner you'll wind up keeping people more. There will be less turnover in your department. To have someone who is dedicated purely to, or not purely, but to everything, which is someone who is out there trying to raise the money, out there trying to talk to people, right? Set up appointments, get coffee dates, go to cocktails, all that good stuff, right? You got somebody doing that, and they're running your annual events, which means they're running volunteers and spreadsheets and all this stuff, right? And they're also supposed to be tracking all the gifts that are coming in that you're getting in, and putting them in the database and doing it right, something's going to give eventually. All right, sounds good on paper initially, but something will give eventually. So if you are hiring just one person right now, yes, start with individual giving, but then build it into your plan, your budget in some fashion to hire an extra person. And whether that is an assistant, whether that is a part-time thing, whatever it is, hire an additional person if you can. Find a way, and you will see the benefits of that and the retention that you get with that that individual giving person who is, again, started to establish relationships, and these things take time, and you want to continue to keep them there. So there's some thoughts for you on how to structure your office, the roles and responsibilities within a development team, within a development office. And again, let me just say this now. All of this is fluid, okay? It depends on where you are, how much you're raising, and also how many donors you have coming in. If you have 1,500 donors, let's say, every single year, you're at 1,500, 2,000 donors, you might even need somebody dedicated purely just to acknowledging all those gifts. All right, that's a whole different scenario. So at Carmel & Associates, we're here for you. If you have questions about things, please do reach out. If you found this information useful, if you found it helpful, please do like it and then share it with somebody who else who may be able to use it as well. All right, you can find us online on LinkedIn, Facebook, all that good stuff. But we're also, if you have questions, send me an email directly. I'm at T as in Tiffany, T Harris, THARRIS at carmelandassociates.com. I look forward to speaking with you and seeing you soon. Take care.